Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Crime Centric. This being a show where I talk about crime dramas that I watch. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about Season 3, Episode 12 of Walker. A lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. Well, first and foremost, we're picking up in the aftermath of last episode, and that situation, Cassie and Cordell have no choice but to bring James in on this whole thing. And it's like, right, we are kind of leaving two dead bodies, one being the guy that Cassie ran off the road and Tommy at his feet. It's like, right, we didn't ask for permission, but we can seriously beg for forgiveness considering like the crap storm situation we're throwing James into. But then James rolls up and he's got Trey with them, and both of them are like, wait, what? They get filled in on everything. Obviously, last episode we found out about Trey being undercover. We find out this is a full-blown FBI operation. Basically, they didn't want to read Cordell and Cassie in the moment Cassie accidentally slipped up and brought up Gray Flag's name at Thanksgiving. If she hadn't, he's like, right, I couldn't relate. He's like, right, they kind of go a little off books, especially in this situation. If he would have let that slide, but he's like, because of that, he couldn't really defend him too much when it's like, hey, we don't want to involve these two. But it's like, yeah, this has been going on. Like, I think they got the word around Thanksgiving is when it kind of went down. Because Trey did leave early, too, so. And I guess that's also plays into what, like, that's probably what James really wanted to talk to him about. But then also, like, the whole, they already knowing Gray Flag's name and everything. But regardless, obviously you could tell, like, Cassie was kind of not too okay with the whole, like, okay, this is being kept from us thing. But eventually, like, her and James worked it out because it's like, right, she's like, I know I get a little enthusiastic, which is like, hey, your Autobots thinking is, something I appreciate about you as a Ranger, but just give me a little heads up going forward, but I thought that'd be more of an issue, but it got resolved this episode. I totally did not recognize the guy that tried to, that killed Tommy, that, Cassie the guy that ran off the road last episode. Did not realize that was Andrew, the same, like, it totally didn't even click in my head, like, last episode. They're like, oh, Andrew Hyde. I'm like, Andrew? I was like, oh, I was like, I totally didn't recognize that was the same dude. They made a point to show his face to be like, oh, like, this was someone we're supposed to know. Because even Cassie's like, hey, is this someone you know? And Cordell was like, no. It was like, as an audience member, I should have I totally did not recognize it was the same. I guess I just didn't pay as much attention to Andrew as, like, I was just like, oh, I should have it. I cannot believe I totally did not realize that's who that was. Which is interesting because he's kind of set up as, Trey's handler, which I'm curious to see how that plays out in the long run considering he's dead now. So, does Gray Flag not know? They must not know that he's dead. Because it's like, right, they sent his phone a text, and that was for Trey to basically show up at a job. So, they don't know he's dead yet. But, like, the moment they do, the question is going to become, wait, how did you find out about this? The only person who would have gotten this message is Andrew. So, how did you get, it's going to be, when did he die? I mean, I guess they're going to do well, to be fair, that's what the FBI was there to do, to clean up the crime scene, because they don't want anyone to know that Andrew's dead, especially because he was supposed to be Trey's in, and if he shows up dead and Trey's here at the same time, it's going to be a little suspicious. So, and it's like, right, whatever happened is, like, eventually they're going to try and contact him, and that's not going to bode well. So, that point is going to come up at some point. It has to, but it's definitely going to be interesting to see what happens on that front. Obviously, Trey was brought in just to be a lookout, but it turned into a little bit of a spicy situation when the person he's looking after, Alana, is like, oh, she ends up getting shot. The moment she was introduced, I was like, oh, are we already playing into what Cordell had brought up before of like, right, don't have any attachments. Yes, he would know that firsthand of like, don't get too attached. Don't let any sob story get you attached to someone, while you're undercover. It's easy to let that happen. He would know better than anyone. But that storyline element of don't like cut attachments ended up coming out a different way in the episode than I wasn't expecting. But we'll get to that in a second. So Cassie kind of went out of her way to try and help Trey because she's like, yeah, Trey's not going to actually leave Lana's side in this situation because that's who Trey is. And so she helps him by bringing him gauzes to help her. But it's like, yeah, she gets shot in the process. It's like that situation could have gone very, very terribly. I mean, the fact is, the situation, I guess, like maybe, because the person they were buying from, the person that Cassie ended up shooting, that guy, apparently he's a black market, like, C4 dealer, so it's like, I guess the deal went wrong. Either Lana didn't want to pay, or the guy wanted more, that, like, he kind of reneged on a deal and wanted to try and get more from them. Something in there went super sideways for her to kind of shoot back and her getting shot in the process. So we don't really know what fully went wrong in there, but, things could have really gone sideways when it came to Cassie, and that's why later on, Trey kind of chews her out for it, because it's like, right, that could have gotten bad, you kind of shouldn't have done that. And even James was like, I shouldn't have let her do that, because like, yeah, you might have gotten grazed, but that could have ended so much worse. But for Cassie, it's like, don't put this on you. I knew the risk. I knew what I was potentially putting myself into. And it's like, obviously, these are all people that are important to him. Every one of his Rangers is important to him. And as a captain, as a leader, you don't want to be in a situation where you have to second guess yourself about things. And, you only have a limited amount of time to try and make the right decisions. But it's like, yeah, at the end of the day, Lana's safe and the job went through, and Trey made the delivery. So it all worked out. And now he's even deeper with Gray Flag. But the problem is, for Trey, it's like, I can't have you guys. I need to handle this on my own. That's why undercover work is solo work, because when you have these type of attachments, Walker's already having to keep his distance because of everything. Now that he's asking Cassie and James to kind of do the same thing, and they agree, because it's like, right, this is what you need to get the job done. What's best for the case, and so that's where things currently stand on that front. But the problem is, like, once again, Cordell knows first and foremost, you need those attachments to draw you back because of what undercover work can kind of do to you. I mean, Trey's also seen that too, not just with not just from Walker. Let's not forget the last thing Mickey was working on was an undercover thing. So there's a correlation there, I'm sure. So, but that's the thing. It's easy to lose yourself in that. So. Also, I think I made this comparison beforehand, especially with the whole trying to recruit people thing, and Cody Bell, who plays James, was in the show Burn Notice. Without spoiling it, that was a storyline in Burn Notice about someone kind of getting recruited by like a radical group. So I think I made that parallel before. I'm fairly certain I have. I don't think this is the first time I thought that, but this in particular, I'm like, yeah, there's always that. I don't think Trey's going to get swept up in the ideology. I think they kind of hope that he does, but that's also once again the dangers of undercover, especially when you're working with such a like I said, it's such a extremist group like this. You could get swept up in those beliefs, even being undercover. So hopefully, I don't think that's going to happen with Trey, but that could definitely be a story development on that front. Either way, another part of this episode, kind of in that same Gray Flag conversation, is Walker and Julia, which the moment like they were like touching heads at certain points, I was like, whoa, are we going down that route? It's like, well, they have a connection. It's just they've both seen so much, they've been through much, especially because they've been through similar experiences with the whole Gray Flag thing, which I also have to note, like, it's so interesting. It's like, man, Cordell's definitely got a type. It's like definitely brunettes, Emily, Jerry, now Julia. There's also, oh god, what was her? Oh god, I'm blanking on her name, from the Rodeo Kings. Obviously, she was in the last season. Oh god, I'm blanking on her name. Either way, the fact of the matter, but it's mainly like, once again, just an interesting pattern, just like it's mainly brunettes in his life. But either way, I was kind of wondering, like, are we tiptoeing towards that situation? Wasn't expecting them to just straight up sleep together, but it's like, it's that complicated, like, oh, we're kind of bound a little bit by trauma, especially because she's helping him deal with a lot of stuff this episode, which once again just kind of sends up red flags, or gray flags in this case, where it's just like, I don't know, man, I'm suspicious, but at the same time, I'm almost like, maybe that's not the case. Maybe I'm reading maybe I probably am reading her wrong. I get nervous at him like that betrayal is going to sideswipe you. But it's just like, especially because she's going through out of her way to really help. I mean, that's probably just Julia, because she is the person that she is. She's the journalist that she is. It's about getting to the truth. And she sees what Cordell's going through. And especially because she's had to do that stuff too, like bury stuff that, not properly dealing with things, like finding, like, probably not the best way to cope, but finding any way to cope with what you're dealing with, So, because she really kind of pushes the whole Coop angle. That's what I think is so interesting too. That's what makes me feel so weird. It's like, the fact is you're going so above and beyond with the Coop stuff. But it's like, oh yeah, like, try and talk to his mom. Sadly, his mom passed away a week ago. It's like, last week, and it's like, damn. It's like, because Cordell had an opportunity to talk to her before, but he didn't. He froze. He was like, he's like, at the time, he's like, I don't know what I would have said. I probably would have talked to her about who her son was, because it's like, there wasn't enough of him. There was nothing of him left to bring back, because he feels guilty over keeping the flag. It's like him and the unit, they kept it anytime they went on a mission, because it was like having Coop with them. And when they returned stateside, he kept it because it was like he couldn't let go of Coop. It's like, this is like my best friend. This was my mentor. But it's like, no, I should have given that to his mom all those years ago, not just waited till now. I should have given it to her years ago, because that was something that would have given her something to hold on to for her son. And he feels wrong and selfish about it after all these years. And now he'll never have, for him, it's like things keep stacking up of things I can't do right, because I can't make right. It's like he can't make up for the time he spent away from his unit. Like, I think it's just one of those things of like, right, we all have this bonded trauma, and being around each other would have been a reminder. So he kept that side of his life away. And it's like, now he'll never have an opportunity to reach out to those other. I mean, this is the first time I'm not saying it's the first time he's thought about them, but anytime he probably has thought about his unit, he probably has pushed it to the side just to focus on other stuff, to get away from all of that. And now it's like, right, the rest of your unit's going, like, in his mind, it's like everyone else is going, you're the only man standing now. So, but Julia ended up getting in contact with a source who ended up giving her some information, like a whole bunch of files and stuff related to some of this great. Specifically, it was about Walker and his mission, specifically the one that led to Coop's death. And ultimately, after opening up with Julia, he ended up opening up to Cassie. He's like, right, I didn't tell you the truth I said that I talked to Coop's mom, but I didn't. It's because I felt ashamed. I froze up. And he's like, I want left hand, right hand, the conversations about this mission. Sure. But he's like, we are partners, and I want to be open with you about it. He's like, oh, do you have anything else to tell me? It's like, he's like, I'm sorry, Cass, and it's like, that's all he had. But I was like, are you about to drop the bomb? I was like, there's no way you, under these circumstances, you're going to be like, oh yeah, plus me and Julia slept together. It's like, that's going to come up eventually, but it's just like, I don't know, man. I can't drop my suspicions of her, but that I'm probably, once again, I'm going to be like, oh, I'm going to feel so bad when it turns, because especially where everything ends up at the end of the episode makes me go like, there's no way, like, she would do that if she was part of Grey Flag, purposely give him information that would kind of lean to the belief that Coop is still alive. And the moment that happened, I was like, the moment, like, Walker's talking about, oh, this is how Coop died at an explosion, I was like, yeah, you can walk away from an like, there was no body found, so I was like, there's a good chance that he did survive, because Cordell was like, oh yeah, there was nothing left, but it's like, no, there was a body. He ended up walking, because they saw the drone footage of that op, and Coop ended up surviving, but Cordell was like, no, those injuries, there's no way he would have survived, especially alone. It's like, well, who's to say he was alone? He might have had some help back then. Like, Coop might have been into something deep even back then. And this, once again, brings up a question that Trey brought up before this episode, but also, I think it been brought up before, but I definitely brought it up. Then what's up with the whole Sean thing then? Why would Sean and them kind of be trying to break Cordell to try and recruit him if you're going to just systematically start killing the rest of the team? I mean, two of the members, before even, like, because it hadn't been that long since Walker was kidnapped, him and eventually Liam, but it's like, that wasn't that long ago. So it has to be a situation where their plan was to specifically recruit Walker. It makes sense, because out of anyone in that unit, Coop had a better relationship with Walker, and I guess just considering all that he's done for himself, maybe they thought they could break Walker, and it's like he's someone that could come to their side, and maybe the others weren't. It makes you, well, because also, like, that was also my thing too. Like, it had to do with the unit. These are all people who would have some connection to Coop. But my thing is, if you were going to clear the board of people who would know you were like, could it be that the reason why? Well, because there was a private security job he ended up getting. Was it Ortiz, and that was the whole conversation they had with his wife a little bit last episode. So part of me is wondering, like, did he directly meet Coop, and then did he not, like, agree with everything that Grey Flag was doing? And so is that why it's like, oh, we have to kill them because they now know I'm alive and I can't jeopardize, like, the mission, so they have to be removed from the board? Because I'm like, once again, why systematically kill everyone? And then, so like, what happened to Cordell might have happened to the others, but they eventually were like, nah, I can't be a part of this. And they had to die because of it. Either they turned it down, or they were a part of it, but then bailed because they couldn't be a part of it. I don't know. Especially because his wife was like, yeah, like, that's when the nightmares really started circulating again for her husband. And that's when things got really bad. So to me, that's the only way to justify, like, also, why now? Once again, you had all these years to go after your unit, if that was the case. So why now? So it has to be a situation of it was they had to be recruited, but they either, like I said, either turned it down or were a part of it, but then bailed because they couldn't be a part of it anymore. So we'll see how things kind of go. This is going to be really sad. I wonder. Well, Coop had to have come back home at some point in time because the flag that Cordell had returned to his home, that's the flag they have up at the Grey Flag compound. So, because I thought that's who Trey was going to meet. I thought they were going to be like, and this is Coop. And then Trey's probably going to be like, oh, this is Walker's Coop. But he doesn't know the story about the burnt flag. So he wouldn't recognize that. We as the audience would. So it's the second best thing to seeing Coop at the compound, which, I mean, obviously the episode ends with us seeing Coop's alive and well. So either way, I'm very interested to see where things kind of go on that front. There's also the other elements of this episode. We got some of the stuff with August, who's helping out. Well, the family's obviously building out the horse charity, and obviously the rest of the families get involved, not just Bonham, who's, you know, a part of this. So is Abby. It's like, oh, like, I'll help kind of craft your mission statement. I love August trying to add in too, like, yeah, we can have people taking photos with the horses, you know, put like a mustache and stuff on the horses. Like, why would you put a mustache on a horse? And we're just looking at him like he's crazy. He's like, you people are the enemy of innovation. But he ends up talking to, God, what's home dude's name? It's Kevin, right? August ended up talking to him, and obviously that led to the Walkers finally having like their first donator when it comes to like the whole horse rescue thing, which we'll circle that in a second. But August, it's like, oh man, like, the fact is, at this place, this event, he's been, obviously, him and Cassie, which I'm like, did they officially break up? But he was like, nah, there's no breaking up if you weren't even like, if it wasn't even a relationship in the first place. And it's like, well, if it was a relationship, which I think that could be skewed a certain way. But I mean, under the context of their circumstances, it's a sweet sentiment. But outside of this circumstance, I could see that sentiment not always being applicable and not always the healthy approach of, well, even if it wasn't a relationship, if it was a relationship to you, it's like, yeah, but that enters that territory. It was like kind of a one-sided relationship. You saw it one way, someone else saw it another. It's like, well, you know, that could be outside of their circumstance. Once again, it makes sense outside of the context of that circumstance. There's some circumstances where that could be kind of like a kind of iffy sentiment to have. But regardless, he's going to be helping out August. It's like, oh yeah, I'll stop by the ranch. I'll kind of help you out with the whole, you know, confidence and speaking to people, because obviously he's like, seeing how Thanksgiving went down, I know you could use some help on that front. But I'm curious if that's kind of setting up of like August's story, that, you know, I mean, obviously it keeps Kevin around, and obviously potentially things between him and Cassie circling back around. We'll see. But I think that's definitely going to be interesting to see what happens on that front. Still like 1% unsure about Kevin, but, you know, once again, not nearly as suspicious as Julia, but there's still some part of me like, I'm just paranoid. I'm just like, just the betrayal could come from any angle, and that's why I'm always scared of characters getting sideswiped by the betrayals they don't see, because those, you know, there's some betrayals you can see a mile away, and there's others that, you know, it's like, once again, the kook thing, it's like, yeah, the moment I was like, yeah, they're making too much of an emphasis on it, and it just makes the most sense. I was like, he has to be alive. I was like, Walker thinks he's dead. He's like, no, he has to be alive. Lo and behold, he is. But another interesting thing, kind of speaking on the horse ranch side of things, the horse therapy stuff, is that it's like, oh man, we're all celebrating, everything worked out, everyone played their part in making their pitch. And that led to like the lady who was kind of being like, hey, I'll get in contact with you next week. I'm liking a lot of this. I like your mission statement. What it's all like. Everyone played the role, even really her appreciating it being a generational thing, which is like, yeah, it's like, yes, Bonham and Abby, and then like Liam, and then Stella. The three generations of that family right there, all working together in that regard. But Liam and Stella kind of hit their first bump in the road because they've been so, everything being so copacetic. But the problem is now they had a division of opinions about like, oh, how's the money going to get divided? It's like, oh, I want to do stuff for the horses. Well, yeah, I want to do stuff for the humans. It's like, she's like, I thought this was supposed to be an even partnership, and it sounds like you're making the decisions about the money. But Abby's like, no, I'll dive deeper into it, which I wonder, does Bonham have some reservations? Because it's like, I want you to relax. I don't want you taking on more than you need to, you know, if you're, you know, your recent health scare and everything. But it's like, all right, I mean, that's it. I mean, I think that's how any business partner is going to work, because it's like, right, we need to go back to, you know, yes, we could all, you know, have someone handle the money, and then we can, you know, yes, it's okay to kind of have different like values or goals that you have. Like, once again, Liam's more so from the human therapy element of it, and Stella's looking at it more so from taking care of the horses, or maybe that's vice versa. Either way, it's like, once again, it's like, right, it's about why we started in the first place. It's to help people, humans and the horses. So whether that's going to become more of a divisive issue for them going forward, because that kind of was kind of first like real bump in the road. But it's like, yeah, like not every partnership's going to fully like agree on everything, but it's about finding that compromise, and luckily Abby could be that compromise, that middle ground for both of them. I mean, this is kind of like a full-blown Walker thing. It's not just Abby. I was curious whether they'd have issues with that or not. The fact is, bringing on more people, because this was supposed to just be their thing, and now other people. But it's like, once again, even Liam's like, yeah, I want Dad to be a part of this, and now Mauline's part of it as well. So it's like, yeah, it's becoming more and more of a family thing. So I don't know. We'll have to wait and see where that takes us, where all of this ends up taking us going forward into the next episode. But really, that's all I'm going to talk about. Until the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day, and goodbye.